Hey everybody, Black Ninja 797 here, and welcome back to another video, guys. In today's video, this is going to be once again another Back 4 Blood ranking video. In this ranking video, we are going to be ranking all the special infected in Back 4 Blood. Now, for this list, this is going to be very interesting because we recently just got some tweaks when it comes to the special infected, and so therefore this ends up impacting my original list that I was going to have for this video. Now, when it comes to this video, I am also going to be including all the variants of the Hawker, Tallboy, and also the Wretch line, because there is 3 versions of each of those. And I will also be including the Abomination at the end of the game that you end up facing, the big final boss zombie, because that technically is still a special infected. So the whole entire list is going to consist of 15 special infected altogether. So we're going to be comparing all 15 and seeing truly which one is the best for the game and which ones need or do not need to be changed. If you guys end up enjoying today's video, as always, please end up showing your support by dropping a like, comment, and subscribe. If there's any particular video that you would like to see me make or a particular thing you would like me to rank in the future, please put it in the comments down below. But anyways, guys, let's rank all the special infected in Back 4 Blood. Alrighty, guys, so coming in at the very first spot, in my opinion, this is the least fun special infected in the entire game, and this is going to end up being the one Tallboy variant, the Crusher. This thing is really annoying. Out of all the special infected in Back 4 Blood, the whole Tallboy line is just extremely annoying to me. The Tallboy in this game is what I basically thought of the Jockey in Left 4 Dead 2, just that one special infected that is there for the sole purpose of annoying and inconveniencing you. And that is exactly how I feel with the Tallboy, specifically the Crusher in particular, because the Crusher is the most annoying of all the 3, because this is the only one that can actually physically trap you. So instead of going around and beating you to death with his arm, he will actually physically grab you and pin you and make it so that way you cannot defend yourself. So the only way that you can get out of this is either by A, having a breakout ability, by having a card or playing as somebody such as Evangelo, or you also have to have a stun gun. And those are the only ways you can really defend yourself unless you end up getting saved by your teammates. And in my opinion, this is just something that I really hate having happen to me when I'm playing, especially the higher difficulties, when a Crusher has just decided to just spawn out of nowhere and just decides to start fiddling me in the corner, and I feel like I'm an episode of Law & Order SVU. So the Crusher, in my opinion, is just a really annoying and obnoxious infected. He seriously really could honestly be out of the game, and I really wouldn't care. And I'm actually just going to follow this up with the 2 other Tallboys, because those were going to be in the next order of the list anyways. And the next one that is not exactly as annoying, at least in my opinion, but is still quite annoying, is going to end up being the Bruiser variant. This is essentially the Tallboy, but he actually can swing his arm more rapidly. So this one doesn't pin you, he'll only just swing his arm and try to beat you to death, but at least it's more fair that way. Although he does swing significantly faster than the normal Tallboy would, so he is a lot stronger, and therefore just a little bit more annoying. And then lastly, it's just the standard Tallboy. They're just all annoying, not only just because of their powers, just because they're also just immune to everything. They can't be stopped by barbed wire, and really the only thing that can even remotely stop them is the frag grenade. But that's only if, like, they don't have armor, or if they're not on, like, Nightmare, or even, you know, Veteran, for example. If you're just playing on the normal game modes, these really aren't necessarily that bad. I will give you the benefit of the doubt, Tallboy. But however, though, pretty much anything past Recruit, and now a little bit of the early levels of Veteran, these guys are honestly just something that I just don't want to deal with. I'm just being honest. I never really liked the Tallboy. They kind of were just annoying just straight off the rip, even as early as the alpha. It's just that they're way too strong because of what they're immune to and what they can do. It's not exactly about the spawn rate, and it's not even necessarily about giving them certain powers. It's just the fact that there really is only like 1 or 2 counter to these things. I could live with the fact that they are really strong, but however though, they either need to make it so that way you can counter it stronger, like for example more than just a frag grenade. I wish that everything in the game was pretty solid, but that's just not the case. There is a little bit of a meta here. Or I would just wish that the corruption cards just wouldn't make them so like deliberately annoying. Like they're almost the director sometimes feels like it wants to be belligerent with me and just wants to spawn either tall boy hordes or specifically like annoying versions of them, such as armored crushers, for example, is a corruption card you can get, which is the armored version of my least favorite version of the entire special infected line, which I just think is very stupid, and I'd much rather would go without it. So from Crusher to Bruiser to Tallboy, literally all those three, just in that order, I could honestly go the rest of my life and never kill the Tallboy again, and I'd be completely fine. Alrighty guys, so now we're on to a special infected that doesn't necessarily annoy me as much, but more rather I am just disappointed in. Because this is one of the boss zombies, believe it or not, in the game. And I really want something better for this special infected just because it's based off of one of the most famous zombies in all of Left 4 Dead. And it's just sad to see this interpretation of it because it basically is a massive downgrade because it's really not fun to fight. And that is going to end up being the Breaker. The Breaker is the tank equivalent of Back 4 Blood's special infected bosses. And in my opinion, I really just don't like the Breaker. I am very sad to say this, but I think it's really just an annoying special infected and it's just kind of dumb. It's really just a massive letdown. I did enjoy the idea of there being a tank equivalent in this game, but really, honestly, one of the types of special infected that functions as a tank better is the Ogre at this point, because it plays like a more traditional tank. And the Breaker in this game is just really, like, I don't know what to say. It's just like, it kind of doesn't feel like what the tank was meant to be. It kind of feels just like a mixture of all the different prior special infecteds that we've faced. So, like, for example, the tank in Left 4 Dead, we all know, it was a zombie that would chase you relentlessly, would always constantly come after you. And it would be able to do things such as throw rocks, beat you to death, and it would just not stop coming. The Breaker in Back 4 Blood is similar, but more tedious and more circumstantial. Let me explain. So, he has abilities now of what some of the Left 4 Dead special infected had mixed with him. So the rock throwing ability is actually gone. That was repurposed and given to the Ogre. So because of that, the Breaker needed some now type of abilities that could end up helping him because his kit basically got compromised. Well, instead of giving him something that would be more tank-like, they basically gave him like passive like environmental abilities. And basically he uses the teamwork of the other zombies to his advantage. He basically dog teams you, because what happens is that when he spawns in, he will fling himself. He has a jumping ability. He's basically got like a lunge exosuit, if you will. He can basically jump all over the place. He's very springy. But the problem is, though, is that once he lands on you, he will then proceed to scream. And then when he screams, he will alert the zombies near you, and they will come attack you. And on top of that as well, he likes to, for some reason, play Fortnite with you and shrink the zone in, because yes, I'm being serious when I say this. He makes a gas zone around you, and he shrinks it over time, and until you kill him, that will be there progressively shrinking as the match goes on, and he will either A, kill you by the zombies that he summons, B, the storm will close and it will kill you that way, or C, he just beats you down with his own bare fists. There is 3 things against you in high quantities. And did I also forget to mention that every single time he screams, the hordes stack. So therefore, if you get extremely unlucky and he spawns in a very bad spot and he gets the jump on you, you are now trapped in whatever given area you are in, and you have a storm closing. Plus, also, in addition to that, is if he continues to jump on you, he will scream again, time and time again, attracting more zombies, and basically screwing you over. There's literally no other way I can word this. He essentially completely can ruin the game, depending on what spot he spawns in, how many zombies he spawns in, and also what difficulty you're playing on. And it's just annoying. I'm basically getting so many things thrown at me at once that's not even exactly about being in a boss fight anymore. It's more rather about like the director just deciding to say, hey, I'm going to screw you over. See, this is what happens when you end up having a breaker, right? You're playing your normal game of Back 4 Blood, you're minding your own business, you have your captions on, and so therefore you see that breaker is showing up, he randomly jumps into the action, then he's all of a sudden just like, welcome to a random episode of me screaming. And keep in mind that this is already after the December update, and he's still annoying. It's not that he's impossible to kill, it's just that I much rather would not end up having to fight him. Because when the tank shows up in Left 4 Dead, it's fun to fight him. The breaker is not. He's just inconvenience. I don't enjoy facing him, and that's really not the mentality that I should be having when I end up going into this, but it is. I can't make myself like the breaker. I've tried. I really have genuinely tried. But until he is changed to either A, he can't stack his hordes, B, you can't end up having a zone come in to close the gap on you, or C, they just make it so that way he can't end up screaming at all, because that would just be really good, honestly, because he's already a strong boss as it is by beating and jumping on you. But being able to have like boomer abilities, plus also he wanted to play Fortnite with you, all that stacked together is just too much. So Turtle Rock, all I ask of you is that just please consider nerfing the breaker, either that or reworking him, because as he stands, he's just not fun to play against, no matter what difficulty it is. Alrighty guys, now we have got the Stalker. This is the very first line of the Hawker family, and basically the Stalker is the jockey of Back 4 Blood. I never really liked the jockey in Left 4 Dead, I kind of still don't. I mean, it's not nearly as bad from when I was a teenager. I originally hated him as a teenager. I understand that he's just a special infected and that's what he does, but just sometimes, man, like I get in my own head and I just think that he's personally laughing at me and it pisses me off. But yeah, in Back 4 Blood, the Stalker, luckily he doesn't have an annoying ass cackle. But in this game, he still does have the exact same basic concept of basically lunging at you and dragging you away. So the premise still stands about like just annoying abilities. I don't like the fact that he can basically take you out of the action and basically jump over your head, because I don't like the idea of having to do like aerial tracking. I much rather would have my special infected on the ground, or if not, at least be able to be easily seen, because when all of a sudden they have an exosuit on, I have to start shooting into the sky like I'm playing Duck Hunt. It just gets annoying. It's not nearly as bad and as inconvenient as the jockey, but I still don't really care for it. So at least in this game, it's not nearly as annoying as it could be, but I still just don't prefer it. That's just the way I look at it, at least. Alright, now we've got the Stinger. And yes, I said the Stinger, because I know some people, for some reason, and I'm looking at you randoms that I play my public lobbies with, sometimes you guys mispronounce that word, I'm watching you. we don't need another Back 4 Blood N-word problem. But yeah, so the Stinger in the Back 4 Blood, basically this is another one of the Hawker variants in the game, and basically this one is specifically meant to just play tag with you. It shoots its spit at you, basically like a spitter, but instead of leaving it just, on the ground, it instead can just shoot at you and, basically poke you repeatedly. He hits you with spit, recharges, hits you with spit. It basically is doing little pokes at you. It's not strong enough that it can just kill you by itself, but the problem is, though, is that it does slow you down over time, so it is going to end up making it so that way other things will kill you. So this special infect is not really meant to kill you on its own, it's more rather meant to just distract you, kind of like nitpick you, get on your nerves a little bit. But at least the good news is, though, is that it doesn't necessarily take you out of the action. It stays at a distance and does leave you alone, doesn't get right in your face and make it so that way you feel like you're being basically destroyed by a whole swarm of these things. Yes, they can stack and sometimes get annoying and basically make it where you cannot move. But I have all the variants of the Stalkers, or the Hawkers, or the Stingers. Basically, I'd say that this one is probably the second most inconvenient. It's not nearly as inconvenient as the Stalker, in my opinion. But I really don't care for the Stinger. It's just an okay special infected. I could just go without it, like I said, for some of the other ones. Because for me, I don't really have any attachment to it. It just sucks because in this game, there's not exactly any personality behind any of these special infected. It's more rather about, like, just solely their abilities. So if their abilities are not cool, I don't really exactly care. But that's just me. I feel like if the game gave the special infected cues or, like, music that was more distinct and almost personality driven, kind of like how in Left 4 Dead that was the case, I think that the special infected, like, it wouldn't necessarily matter as much to me, but it's, since there's no personality, it's just based off of how OP or not they are. And if I'm basing off the kit, I could kind of just go without the Stinger. That's just me, though. Now we move on to the Reeker. This is the very first Wretch version of the zombie. And the Wretch, in my opinion, out of all of its variants, the Reeker is probably going to be the least best in my opinion, but it's not exactly a bad special infected either. When I'm playing on any difficulty, the REEEE has never been annoying, and nor has it been boring. It's not exactly a special infected that's original. It's basically the essential variant of the boomer minus the vomit part. It does have at least the explosion variant of him though. And all this is really meant to do is basically be a walking suicide bomb. All the guy does is just walk up to you and explode. It's supposed to be basically like, hey, come at me, bro, and then he ends up dying. He's there to just be temporarily a distraction once again, but I'm used to that. I'm used to that with the boomer, so it's really not a big deal to me. Because it feels a lot like the boomer, I think that's maybe one of the reasons why I like it. But however, though, it's not exactly without its faults. It's still exactly the way that the boomer is, minus the vomit part. But however, though, that can end up making him boring because now the Wretch is the one that has the vomit, and the Exploder has a more lethal version of this explosion ability. So the REEEE is essentially the Exploder, but weaker, and less, you know, I guess you could say inconvenient and less boomer-like. But I could say this without really skipping a beat is that he's not that bad, he's just not really that good either. We're starting to get to that average category when it comes to the special infected. Speaking of which, now we move on to the Exploder. The Exploder is once again another one of the Wretch family, and the Exploder, he basically is going to be the exact same thing as the REEEE, but more lethal. He basically has a bigger blast radius, and the guy essentially is just a little bit more efficient at what he does. Pretty much it's the exact same thing as what the REEEE does, but he literally is just more meant to explode. The explosion is more rather what he does, rather than the acid pool that the REEEE leaves behind. And in my opinion, I feel like that the Exploder, he's more enjoyable just because of the fact that he is more of a threat, because he's a less boring version of the REEEE. I don't mind when the special infected are strong sometimes, it's just that they gotta be strong in the right ways, where it doesn't make the gameplay either too slow and boring, or where it makes it too chaotic and you feel like you can't do anything. And that's where I feel like the Exploder is starting to be the beginning of the more game-helping special infected rather than inconvenient ones. And now we move on to the Wretch. The Wretch is going to be the boomer, pretty much, of this game, because this is the only one that can actually projectile vomit. He can track you, and he can fling his vomit over really high distances, and he's actually a lot more beefy than the original boomer. All of these versions of the, the Wretch, they are a lot beefier than the boomer. But this one in particular is the most like the original boomer. It's just that he can't be, like, basically, like, instantly exploded. So he essentially has more armor, just thicker skin, and he's overall a lot more dangerous. And you have to respect him, because if you don't kill him quick enough, he's going to screw you over. If you don't end up paying attention to him, he can actually very much kill you. Like, he can kill you very quick, actually, especially on the higher difficulties. He has been nerfed within the recent patch, and he can't exactly track you as well anymore. He can't get you over as long distances, and he can't, like, just follow you by just spraying left or right like a garden hose. But that makes it more fair, though. Because of the fact that he is chunkier, the fact that he is beefier and he can take more hits, he does need to in turn be slower, and this kind of makes him like the opposite version of the boomer. Instead of being quick and weak, he is strong and slow. He's become more like a linebacker, if that makes any sense. So in my opinion, I feel like the Wretch is probably the most balanced of all the special infected that we've encountered so far. Legitimately, to be honest, he's not annoying, he's not boring, and actually I feel like he helps the game. So now as we move on to the last few, this is where we start to get into pretty much the really good special infected that I can play against quite regularly. Alrighty guys, now we've finally gotten over to the Abomination. So this is the final boss of the game, and basically the final special infected that we see in the story. The Abomination, in my opinion, he needs to be recognized for the fact of what he is, which is just a final boss. Obviously, he's meant to be on one mission and one mission only for a one-time event, and even though that's the case, I still like that, because in Left 4 Dead, the only bosses we ever had was basically the Witch and the Tank, and even though those bosses were cool, we need to have a step up. We need to have something to improve upon, because keep in mind that Left 4 Dead 2 came out in 2009, Back 4 Blood came out in 2021. It's been a long time coming. We need to have a much bigger, more dangerous boss, something that we can fear, something that will be a really big challenge. And the Abomination is that. This guy has his own mission that it takes that long. So we all know that this is one big dude. This guy essentially takes up a whole entire map by himself. And basically, he's meant to be the very big conclusion to the end of the game. The main story final mission. So essentially what happens is that when you start the mission, you have to fight his tentacle half, which is basically where the 4 tentacles show up out of the ground, and you have to shoot their mouths and blow them up and, you know, basically kill them, so that way you can fall down into the ground where the Abomination's face is for his second phase. Now with his second phase, you have to shoot the spores that are in his mouth and make it so that way they blow up, so that way you can end up getting him to move. Once you defeat him in his second phase, his third phase, there is 4 spores around his body as he's trying to go over to Fort Hope to destroy it, and you have 5 minutes to destroy all of his spores to kill him before he reaches to the end. Otherwise, you win or you lose. And in my opinion, this is a really well done boss fight. He's scary, he's intimidating, he's not annoying, he's most certainly not boring. And even though he is exactly the same every single time, exact same identical patterns, it's only just for the one mission at the very end of the game. So I think that that's good. If he was a normal special infected and he just showed up randomly again, you know, amongst all the other ones, obviously that just wouldn't work. But the fact that he's only meant for just the one-off makes him fine. It makes it completely fine that way because it's a choice. It's a good conclusion to the finale of the game. And in my opinion, he's one of the most unique bosses that we've ever seen in all the, you know, the series. Because he's not really based off of anything, he's just kind of his own thing, and so therefore he's very original. I remember my very first reaction. If you guys don't remember it, I'll play the clip right here in the video. But take a look at my reaction when I initially saw this thing. Oh, that's a new character, actually. Wait, what the f was that? Wait, what? What the f is that thing? What are you? As you guys can see, I was extremely hyped for when the Abomination was first shown. It was such a cool-ass thing to see, because I was not expecting that for this game. And that was when the game wasn't even released yet. And I'll tell you this, is that the game did deliver. When I first played against the Abomination, it was a very challenging boss at first, because I didn't know how it worked yet. And then when I figured out how to, you know, make it work, everyone was like, oh, well, this is really, really cool. But how do you beat it? You know, like, what did you do differently? And I then therefore made a tutorial, and then I like let everyone know. And then once we kind of all as a community got the hang of it, it's now just, you know, easy. Like, we all know how to defeat the Abomination. It's very straightforward. And for anybody that's new, it's very easy to show them, because it's literally the exact same thing over and over and over again. And really the only thing that can make it harder is just the fact that everything else spawns trying to defend the thing. But however, though, this infected is still extremely cool. Obviously, without the other special infected, it really wouldn't be that big of a boss, just because, you know, it would be very easy to kill him, just because he's very pattern-like, very predictable. But however, though, he really works for what he did. So Turtle Rock, you made a really great final boss, in my opinion. It definitely lived up to expectations, and I really do hope that you can replicate something like this again in Back 4 Blood 2, or just any future DLC you work on. But guys, we are not done yet. We still have 5 more special infected left to go. I purposely only put the Abomination so far into the list. It's just because the Abomination, as much as he is cool, he only is just for that one single mission. And I want to be able to play all the other missions. So because he's only available on the one, I decided to put him at, you know, the very close part of the list, like towards the end. But I do have other ones that do end up getting better spots. And that next special infected that's going to be on said better spots is going to actually, believe it or not, be the Snitch. I really like the Snitch. The Snitch, in my opinion, is a really good reused version of the assets from a scrapped Left 4 Dead infected, believe it or not. For those of you guys that never have heard of this, I'll basically give you the backstory. The Snitch in Back 4 Blood is basically a repurposed version of the scrapped special infected concept from Left 4 Dead, which was going to end up being the Screamer. The Screamer was meant to end up being a special infected in Left 4 Dead that did almost essentially the exact same thing as the Snitch. He would be on the map, and he would run away from you, and then he would call a horde by screaming. He was basically meant to end up being like in a straitjacket and be basically an insane asylum patient. But however, though, the idea got scrapped because basically what they had him do was they had him get out of the action. He ran away from the survivors. And because he would run away, it made it so that way you had to feel like you had to chase him, because if you didn't, he would alert a horde to you. So he was like a very campy boomer, almost, it was like. And really, it wasn't fun to play against him. So because of that, they cut the idea. But later on, several years later, they repurposed it with the Snitch. So instead of the Snitch doing the same thing as the Screamer and running away from you, he just wanders around and he kind of just doesn't do anything. He doesn't exactly seek you out, as far as I'm aware. I think he just walks around, and if you leave him alone, he's not going to scream. But, however, though, if you shoot him, he will scream, and he will summon a horde of zombies unless you can kill him quick enough. Or the game decides to say, go F yourself, and makes it so that way there's a corruption card that makes it so that way, regardless if you kill him or not, he will still scream and alert a horde anyways. That's always fun. But, yeah, so the Snitch, in my opinion, even though he can be a little bit inconvenient at times, especially in higher difficulties, because sometimes, unless you just completely avoid him because of bad luck with corruption cards where he'll alert a horde regardless if you kill him or not, I still think that he's a really good special infected. I'm really glad they were finally able to repurpose the Screamer, because now he, technically in spirit form, exists in Back 4 Blood. Now, I think that you guys wouldn't be expecting to see this that high on the list, but it's actually going to end up being the Sleeper. The Sleeper is basically like the secret hidden 4th variant of the Hawker, or in this case, he just kind of is his own special infected. But I do like to think of him as a Hawker variant, even though he's not technically, because he looks just super similar. But the Sleeper, regardless of what his origins are, the Sleeper, in my opinion, is one of the best special infected in the game, because of the fact that he really makes you have to think. He's not exactly a threat unless you end up just making a mistake. Because, think about it this way, the way that the Sleeper works is that he literally can't do anything unless you're too close to him and you're also within line of sight. He just sits on random walls, and he's kind of got like this sleeper pod, and if you get too close to him, if he's got a direct line of sight on you, he's going to jump out randomly, and he's going to pounce you, and then he's going to kill you. Now, if he's in a spot where you can avoid him, it doesn't even matter. He just chills there. He doesn't come out of his, his little cocoon. He just sits there and vibes. So you could hypothetically never run into a sleeper as long as you're careful. But that's the thing. Not everyone is careful. They've been tweaking him around, so they made it so that way he's more accurate and he's less likely to miss when he's trying to jump at you. So you really have to be aware now, because before you kind of could cheese them, you could just like basically run around them. You didn't have to actually worry, but because that would make it so that way you would actually have to focus more. Because essentially what people would do is if they just ran fast enough, they basically could just cheese the system. They didn't actually have to pay attention to their surroundings and look for, sleepers hiding in the distance. But now you can. So basically what he's meant to do is a wake-up call. He will just be chilling, kind of like the Snitch, although he can't move. So really it's up to you to just be paying attention. If you pay attention and you see him, he's one of the easiest special infected in the entire game. However though, if you're not paying attention, he will kill you. He will kill you quite fast. He's quick, he's accurate now, you can't avoid him really anymore, and he will destroy you very fast. He's one of the fastest TTKs. So, if you're not careful, you'll die. Trust me, I've had it happen to me several times, and it's not worth being lazy. And I like the fact that he does this because it makes you have to pay attention. Because one of the worst things about these types of games is when your teammates just don't pay attention. And the Sleeper is literally designed to make people listen. It's literally designed to make people be like, hey, I probably shouldn't be blasting random music out of my open mic and be just sitting here drinking with my buddies and basically being obnoxious. I should actually strategize and be courteous of my teammates. So I shout out the Sleeper for being the way he is because it makes the game only play better. And now guys, we have got the Hawker. The Hawker is going to be my personal favorite special infected that's not at least a boss in the game. Because the Hawker, the way that he works is that he is essentially like a combo between the Hunter and the Spitter. He basically has long-range hunter abilities. He can end up shooting spit out of himself that can end up pinning you, so that way you cannot move. And he can end up doing this quite well, actually. And plus, also, he just looks cool. In my opinion, this is the coolest looking special infected in pretty much the whole entire game, because he looks basically like a zombie, like forearms from Ben 10 Spider-Man type of zombie. He looks really creepy, and honestly, out of all the special infected, in my opinion, he's probably the most cosmetically good looking, in my opinion, and I think that that should be recognized. I do wish that, like I said, the special infected had detailed music, because if he had music, it would be even more cool for him. But in my opinion, regardless of all this, I just still think that the Hawker is really good in the game. He's very good at balancing the game and making the game feel intense without being inconvenient to you or your team, because he's only fair. Basically, if you see him, you can kill him quick enough before he's able to end up spitting on you. But however, though, if he does get you, you can't do anything else. You either A, have a taser, a breakout ability or your teammates melee you. And it's good too that they can melee you, because if they had to like rip off the spit, kind of like how they end up having it like with the survivors that are stuck to walls or when you're being rescued after you died, if it was like that, this wouldn't work and he would not be nearly as high as he is on the list right now. But because it's just one stab or one punch even, and you're automatically free, it's easy. You can save someone very easy. But if there's a cluster F going on, kind of like normally how there is in Back 4 Blood, this isn't always a guaranteed. So it's an easy fix. It's just a matter about whether or not the circumstances allow for that easy fix. So it's a really good balancing act. It's more rather about like how good your team is at multitasking and how good you are at being able to survive around the fly. Because if you're not going to end up helping your teammates, you're going to get killed for it, because the Hawker will probably end up getting you if you're a straggler. He'll probably also end up getting you if you decide to be like, hey, I'm not going to heal my teammates, I'm basically going to be selfish and try to do a speed build and just run to the very end of the map and just be irrelevant from what's going on. He's going to get you. He's going to get you, and he's going to get you and make it so that way you can't move, and you have to wish that your teammates show up there on time before you basically bleed out to death. And I like that. It rewards the people that stick together without punishing people that at least want to be an aggressive player. Now guys, this is one of the biggest comebacks that I've seen for all the special infected in this game so far. Coming in at number 2, it's not quite number 1, but maybe you might get there one day, buddy. This is going to end up being the Ogre. The Ogre has made a massive comeback, in my opinion, for how he is. Because from what he once was, it's a drastic change. Now, the Ogre has been available in the game since the alpha. And in the alpha, in my opinion, he was a massive letdown because he didn't perform the way that he does now. Trust me, he didn't at all. Because basically what the Ogre would do is that he would still essentially spawn in like he does. You know, he would be this big threat. He'd be like one of the biggest boss zombies in the entire game, you know, other than the Abomination, of course. And basically what he would do is he would basically be a glorified, newer version of the tank. Because basically this is the tank of the game, honestly. Even though, you know, that's technically the breaker. In my opinion, the Ogre plays more like what a tank would be. He's got the rock throwing ability. He's just overall a big dude that just comes in and just tries to just destroy you by grabbing you and flinging you and punching you. And he does a really good job of that. Now, before in the alpha, what would happen is that he would spawn in and he would basically just be a giant meat wall. He would basically block off the campaign. Because what would happen is that if he showed up, he would basically follow you, and this would lead to players hiding, and they would basically be in an area where all he can do is just shove in his arm and hope to grab you, but obviously a lot of players aren't that stupid. So essentially what would happen is that you would be stuck in a wall, or a corner, or somewhere where he couldn't get you, and he wouldn't leave. He was not programmed to leave. He would relentlessly just stay there and wait for you, which would make the game basically halt and be at a dead stop. If you didn't kill him, he would wait there endlessly, and it felt like a Call of Duty lobby. He would just sit there and he'd be waiting and waiting and waiting until you moved, which would basically either force you to kill yourself or basically take the biggest risk of your life. And it would make it so that way the game wasn't fun. He was basically just a giant, massive, inconvenience to you. Literally the pure definition of inconvenience. You couldn't kill him because at the time his health was just way too large. So all you could do was just hope to outrun him. A lot of people back in the alpha, they would do what the survivors do, like with their dialogue where they just say run. Most people would just run. They would just forget about him and move on. But then he would respawn on another chapter, and then another chapter, and he basically would show up infinitely. And you can get him to half health, and basically when he was at half health, he would at least go away at that point. But the problem was that wasn't until they updated it. Because literally, like I said before, he would just not do that. He would just stay there infinitely. And then they made it a little bit easier where he would eventually leave at the halfway mark, but his health was still high. And they progressively tuned this over the next coming weeks and months and everything. And then by the time that the beta came around, he was significantly better. By the time that the game launched, he was a lot better. Because now he only shows up at specific instances. He will leave once you get him to half HP. He will keep his half HP and not just get it back, because before I think he would also get his HP back depending on the given circumstances. Not all the time, but I think there were certain circumstances. I just can't remember if that was a bug or not. But regardless though, he only shows up in certain circumstances. He will leave at half HP now, so that way he can't basically trap you. He's significantly a lot easier to kill. because of the, you know, the lack of ammo that there is around the map. And overall, he is just more fun to face. If you choose to fight him, he's not going to basically just camp and try to avoid you, because sometimes what would happen is that if you decide to actually fight him, sometimes he would just be way too, like, eager to get away. If you were killing him too quick, he would be really, really quick to leave. Like, instead of, like, going to a certain spot on the map to leave, he would literally just dig straight down from where he is, and he would almost be impossible to kill unless you had grenades, because once he got to the halfway point, he was like, oh, no, regardless of where I'm standing, I'm just going to instantly just dig into the ground, I'm gone. Now he actually has to go into certain select areas, so it makes it where you can chase him down and finish him off, and if you're quick enough, he will die. So the Ogre, in my opinion, it's been a long time for him to get to where he is, but where it is that he stands now is really fair, in my opinion. He's very fun to face against, regardless of whether or not you decide to end up leaving or fighting him, and I honestly think that he is a much improved version from his one self, and I think that the Ogre should be recognized as one of the best special infected in the entire game. But guys, even though I like the Ogre, there's still one special infected left that I think basically takes the cake and is pretty much perfect for this game. That is going to be the Hag. The Hag is the witch equivalent in Back 4 Blood, and this special infected is so damn fun to face, because basically they repurposed the witch to make it scary again. So we all know that in Left 4 Dead, after a while, the witch isn't exactly as scary anymore, but Back 4 Blood, the way that they did it, Turtle Rock decided to do something cheeky. They decided to basically repurpose the mechanics a little bit to make it a lot more, you know, creepy, if you will. Basically, what they would do is that when the Hag shows up, and I didn't even know this at first, I originally just thought it would just work like a normal witch, but I found this out randomly. Basically, the Hag, if you end up playing, it will just show up randomly, and it will try to attack you. But however, though, it still functions just like the witch. It only goes for the person that shoots it, unless you get too close to it, and obviously just piss it off by just proximity. So basically what happens is that, you know how the witch, it would just be fine if you left it alone, but if you got too close, it would get pissed at you? The Hag does the same thing, but with one major difference. The Hag will follow you. It doesn't end up following you like the witch does, where it's kind of like random, and overall like a lot less aggressive. No, the Hag will literally act like basically like those statues from, I think it's like you know, Doctor Who or whatever, where basically if you're not looking at it, it all of a sudden just shows up. That's what the Hag does. It's really, really creepy. If you don't know what the Hag does, it literally will just stalk you infinitely. If you don't shoot it, it will follow you. It's not going to go away and just decide to say, you know, F this like the way that the Ogre does. If it spawns, you're either going to have to, A, basically get completely lucky and just hope that you can get to the safe room before an instance like what I'm about to list happens, or either the next option is you're going to have someone shoot it and kill it quick enough before it can kill you. Because if you shoot it, it will go for you until it kills you or you kill it. But also as well, it will just stalk you. And the thing is too is that it will get close enough deliberately to get to pissed off range. It's not like it's going to stalk you and then just wait for, you know, you to like panic shoot or anything. It literally gets close enough so that way it can get pissed off and then attack you. So it's either going to get pissed off and attack you because you're too close, or because it follows you, or because you shoot it. And dude, it's jump scared me so many times. You have no idea how much that this thing is truly creepy, especially with the lack of a music cue. This actually works out in its favor because of the fact of the lack of a music cue. But like, even though it does have some minor music, it's not, you know, permanent, it's only temporary. If he ends up just getting even one little chance to sneak up on you, it will. It's going to just run right behind you and make you crap your pants like it did me in this clip right here. Like, look at that, it's like, oh, it's so creepy. Like, it stalks you if you don't shoot it, though. It's like it just stays in your, like, general vicinity, so that way you can, like, accidentally shoot it later. So, basically, in conclusion, the Hag is one of the scariest zombies that I've ever seen in my life, and therefore makes it the #1 spot on this list for one of the best special infected in all Back 4 Blood. And who knows, maybe as there is DLC special infected throughout this game, maybe one might overtake it, but as of right now, the Hag is the best special infected in the entire game. But yeah, guys, that's going to be here for today's video. I do truly hope you guys ended up enjoying it. And if you did, please consider dropping a like, comment, and subscribe to show your guys' support. If you guys would like to financially support the channel, I'd tremendously appreciate if you guys could go check out my Patreon. It's always linked down below in all my YouTube video descriptions. Or you guys can use supporter creator code BlackNinja797 in all caps in the Fortnite Epic Games item shops, because Epic's my very first sponsor, and they're sponsoring today's video, so shout out to Epic Games. And yeah, guys, I hope you end up enjoying seeing another YouTube video from the most unique YouTuber you guys are ever going to see. Thank you for watching, guys. I love you, and peace out.
Hey, meme lords. Jesus here. And you better have enjoyed that video there by the eternal god Daddy Ninja. You should probably subscribe too, or the mighty Moab will come for your balls. If you enjoyed the video, you might like it too. And give me the memes. Flash, bang, boom!